The ink on the divorce papers was smeared with a single falling tear, but the hand holding the pen didn't shake. Not anymore. Across the mahogany table, amidst the crystal glasses and the scent of roast goose, the man she had loved for 3 years was laughing with another woman. His mother, the iron-fisted matriarch of the Sterling family, watched with a cold, triumphant sneer. They thought they were discarding a broke, helpless schoolteacher. They thought they had won. But as Elena slid the signed papers across the table, the heavy oak doors of the dining room burst open. They didn't know that the woman they just humiliated was the sole heiress to the Vance empire. They didn't know that by signing those papers, Elena hadn't lost a husband. She had just foreclosed on their entire lives. This is the story of how the Sterling family lost everything at Christmas dinner. The snow was falling heavily over the sprawling estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, painting a picture-perfect scene of wealth and tranquility. But inside the Sterling manor, the air was thick enough to choke on. Eleanor adjusted the collar of her fading wool sweater, a garment her mother-in-law, Beatrice Sterling, had called ragged 3 times that morning. Elena was in the kitchen, not eating, but polishing the vintage silverware that the staff had missed. It was Christmas Eve, 2023. "You missed a spot on the gravy boat, Elena." A sharp voice cut through the room. Elena didn't flinch. She was used to it. She turned to see Beatrice standing there, draped in a silk kimono that cost more than Elena's annual salary as a special needs teacher. Beatrice was a woman who wore her cruelty like her diamonds, sharp, cold, and on display for everyone to see. "I'm finishing it now, Beatrice," Elena said softly. "It's Mother Sterling to you," Beatrice snapped, sipping her 3rd mimosa of the morning. "And frankly, I don't know why I bother. You'll never truly fit in here, will you? Look at you. No makeup, hair in a bun. You look like the help, not the wife of a Sterling." Eleanor bit her tongue. For 3 years she had swallowed these insults for the sake of Liam. Liam Sterling, the handsome, charming architect she had met in a coffee shop in Boston. Back then he was sweet. He told her he wanted to build a life with her. But the moment she married him and moved into the family estate to save money while Liam launched his firm, the man she loved had evaporated. In his place was a coward who let his mother run his life. "Where is Liam?" Elena asked, changing the subject. "He went to pick up Sarah from the station," Beatrice said, a wicked glint in her eye. Elena froze. The silver spoon in her hand clattered onto the counter. "Sarah, his ex-girlfriend, the one who works at Goldman Sachs?" "The very same." Beatrice smiled, inspecting her manicured nails. "Her family is coming for Christmas dinner tomorrow. Her father is looking to invest in Liam's firm. A real investment, Elena. Not the emotional support you provide. Sarah is staying in the East Wing. Try not to embarrass us when she gets here." Beatrice turned and walked out, leaving Elena standing alone in the cold, expansive kitchen. Elena felt the familiar sting of tears, but she refused to let them fall. She pulled her phone from her pocket. It was an old model, screen cracked. Another thing Beatrice mocked. She had one unread message from a contact saved simply as Dad. Message: "Are you coming home for Christmas, Elle? The jet is fueled in Teterboro. Just say the word. I miss you." Elena's thumb hovered over the reply. Her father, Arthur Vance, wasn't just a dad. He was the founder of Vance Global, a private equity firm that quietly owned half the supply chain in North America. He was a man who could buy the Sterling family 10 times over and still have change for lunch. When Elena met Liam, she had introduced herself as Elena Vance, a teacher. She wanted to be loved for herself, not her trust fund. She wanted to avoid the fortune hunters who had plagued her dating life in her early 20s. Arthur had warned her. They will love the money, Elle, not the girl. She had defied him. She married Liam without a prenup because she had nothing in her bank account to protect. Or so Liam thought. Her billions were locked in a blind trust, untouched. She typed back, "I can't, Dad. I have to try one last time. If this Christmas doesn't work, I'm done. Love you." She put the phone away just as the front door slammed open. High-pitched laughter echoed from the foyer. Elena walked out to the hallway and saw them. Liam was shaking the snow off his coat, his face flushed with excitement. Hanging on his arm, looking like a model out of a Vogue catalogue, was Sarah. She was wearing a white cashmere coat and thigh-high suede boots. "Elena," Liam said, his smile faltering slightly when he saw his wife. "I didn't know you were downstairs." "I was polishing the silver," Elena said flatly. Sarah stepped forward, looking Elena up and down with a pitying smile. "Oh, you poor thing. Liam, you didn't tell me you had her working on Christmas Eve? That's so rustic." "She insists on helping," Liam lied smoothly, leaning down to kiss Sarah on the cheek, a lingering, intimate kiss that lasted a second too long for a friend. "Mother says it gives her purpose." Elena felt her heart crack a little more. "Hello, Sarah." "Hi, sweetie," Sarah said, handing her coat to the butler, but treating Elena like she was part of the staff. "Could you be a dear and take my bags up to the East Wing? The Louis Vuitton trunk is a bit heavy." Elena looked at Liam, waiting for him to defend her. Waiting for him to say, "That's my wife, not a porter." Liam just checked his Rolex. "Yeah, Elle, could you? I need to show Sarah the blueprints in the study. Beatrice is waiting for us." He turned his back on her. He didn't even say hello. He didn't ask how she was. He just walked away with the woman his mother wanted him to marry. Elena stood there for a long moment. The butler, a kind older man named Henry, who had suspected for a long time that Elena was more than she seemed, stepped forward. "I'll take the bags, Mrs. Sterling," Henry whispered. "No, Henry," Elena said, her voice trembling but her eyes hardening into steel. "I'll take them. I want to see exactly where they are putting her." As Eleanor hauled the heavy designer luggage up the grand staircase, she made a decision. She wasn't just going to leave. Leaving was too easy. She was going to burn their little world to the ground. The dinner on Christmas Eve was a small affair, according to Beatrice, which meant only 20 guests, mostly local socialites and business partners of the Sterling family. The dining room was lit by candlelight, casting long shadows against the velvet wallpaper. Eleanor was seated at the far end of the table, near the kitchen door, the children's seat, usually reserved for late arrivals. Liam, however, was seated at the center, right next to Sarah. Beatrice tapped her glass with a spoon. The room went silent. "I would like to propose a toast," Beatrice announced, standing up. She looked regal in emerald green, but her eyes were predatory. "To family, to tradition, and to the future of Sterling architecture. As many of you know, my son Liam has been working tirelessly on the Kensington project." Applause rippled through the room. "And," Beatrice continued, her voice raising an octave, "we are delighted to announce that thanks to the generous partnership of Sarah's father, Mr. Dyram, the project is officially fully funded." Liam beamed, raising his glass to Sarah. "I couldn't have done it without Sarah's belief in me," he said. Elena sat silently, clutching her water glass. The Kensington project. Liam had told her the bank rejected the loan last week. He hadn't told her he went to Sarah's father. "Wait, there's more," Sarah giggled, standing up and placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. "Liam and I have been talking, and we realized that success requires alignment in business and in life. The implication hung in the air like toxic smoke. The guests glanced awkwardly at Eleanor, then back to the glowing couple. They knew. Everyone knew. Eleanor was the placeholder. Sarah was the upgrade. A woman across from Eleanor, Mrs. Halloway, leaned in. She was a gossip monger who loved tragedy. "Must be hard for you, dear," she whispered, loud enough for half the table to hear. "Knowing you're the anchor holding that poor boy back." Elena set her glass down. "I beg your pardon." "Oh, don't play coy," Mrs. Halloway smirked. "Liam needs a wife who can navigate this world. Someone with pedigree. You're what is it? A tutor." "A teacher," Elena corrected. "Right. Noble. But bills aren't paid with nobility, are they?" "Actually," Beatrice interjected from the head of the table, hearing the commotion, "Elena contributes in her own way. She's very good at economizing. In fact, Elena, didn't you make your dress yourself?" The table erupted in polite, stifled laughter. Elena looked down at her dress. It was a vintage piece, yes, but it was an authentic 1950s Dior she had found in a consignment shop in Paris years ago, before she cut herself off from her father's money. To these people, it just looked old. "It's vintage," Elena said quietly. "It's used," Beatrice corrected. "But that's okay. We don't all come from money. Liam, darling, tell them about the retreat." Liam cleared his throat, avoiding Elena's eyes. "Right. For the new year, Sarah and I will be heading to Aspen to oversee the lodge design. Just the two of us. Strictly business, of course." Elena felt the air leave her lungs. Aspen. They were going to Aspen. That was where Liam had proposed to Elena. It was their place. "And Elena?" Mrs. Halloway asked. "Will you be joining?" Liam looked at his plate. "No. Elena will be staying here to manage the estate while Mother is in Florida. Someone needs to watch the house." That was the breaking point. They weren't just cheating. They were demoting her to a house-sitter in her own marital home. Elena stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "I'm feeling unwell," Elena said, her voice steady despite the hurricane inside her. "Sit down, Elena," Liam hissed. "Don't make a scene." "Let her go, Liam." Beatrice waved a hand dismissively. "She's clearly overwhelmed by the caliber of the company. Go rest, dear, and take the back stairs. We don't want you running into the caterers." Elena turned and walked out. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She walked with the grace of a queen heading to the gallows. She went straight to the library study, the one room she was forbidden to enter because it contained sensitive business documents. She didn't care anymore. She needed to know how deep the betrayal went. She opened Liam's briefcase, which was sitting on the desk. She flipped through the Kensington project files. Boring. Boring. And then, a manila envelope at the back. It wasn't a business contract. It was a draft. Petition for dissolution of marriage. They had already drawn up the divorce papers. She scanned the document. It was brutal. Beatrice's lawyers had drafted it. They were offering her a settlement of $5,000 and a used Honda Civic, citing irreconcilable differences and financial incompatibility. They planned to serve her on January 2nd, right after she had watched the house for them. Elena stared at the paper. $5,000. She laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. $5,000 was what she used to spend on a handbag before she met Liam. She took a photo of the document. Then she pulled out her phone and dialed the number she hadn't called in 3 years. It rang once. "Elena." A deep, gruff voice answered immediately. "Is everything okay?" "No, Daddy," Elena said, her voice breaking for the first time. You were right. You were right about everything." There was a silence on the other end, followed by the sound of a chair moving and movement. Arthur Vance didn't offer, "I told you so." He went straight to war mode. "Where are you?" "I'm at the Sterling estate. They handed me divorce papers behind my back. They're humiliating me, Dad. They treat me like a beggar." "Stay there," Arthur said, his voice dropping to a terrifyingly calm register. "Do not leave. You survive tonight. Tomorrow is Christmas. I'm bringing the jet. And Elena?" "Yes." "Call the family lawyer, the real one. Tell him to bring the acquisition team." "The acquisition team? Dad, what are you going to do?" "I'm not just coming for dinner, sweetheart," Arthur Vance growled. "I'm buying the whole damn table." Elena hung up. She looked at the divorce papers in the briefcase. She reached into the drawer, found a pen, and pulled the papers out. She wasn't going to wait for January 2nd. If they wanted a divorce, she would give it to them. But she would do it on her terms. She walked back to her room, opened her closet, and pushed aside the teacher clothes. In the very back, inside a garment bag she had kept hidden for emergencies, was a dress. It wasn't simple. It wasn't modest. It was a custom-made, blood-red Givenchy gown. She laid it on the bed. Tomorrow, the mouse would die, and the lioness would wake up. Christmas morning dawned with a deceptive brightness. The sun reflected off the fresh snow, blindingly white, mirroring the artificial perfection of the Sterling household. Elena didn't sleep. She had spent the night packing. Not her clothes, she was leaving those rags behind. She packed her documents, her passport, and the small velvet box containing the only thing of value she had brought into this marriage, a simple locket with a picture of her late mother. At 8 a.m. the chimes rang for breakfast. Elena descended the stairs. She wasn't wearing the red dress yet. That was for the finale. Instead, she wore a sharp black turtleneck and tailored trousers she had bought years ago in Milan. It was severe, elegant, and entirely unlike the frumpy cardigans Liam was used to. In the living room, the scene was nauseatingly domestic. A massive spruce tree touched the vaulted ceiling, buried under a mountain of gold and silver-wrapped gifts. Beatrice sat in her high-backed velvet chair. Sarah was perched on the arm of the sofa next to Liam, and Liam looked hungover. "Oh, look who decided to join the living," Beatrice sneered as Eleanor entered. "We thought you might sleep through the gift exchange, though I suppose you didn't have much to contribute to the pile, did you?" Elena walked to a single armchair in the corner, sitting with a posture so straight it looked painful. "I'm here, Beatrice." "Well, let's get on with it," Liam grumbled, rubbing his temples. "Sarah, you open yours first." Sarah squealed with delight as Liam handed her a small box from Tiffany's. She opened it to reveal a diamond tennis bracelet. "Oh, Liam, it's stunning." She threw her arms around his neck. "Thank you, darling." Elena watched, her face a mask of ice. That bracelet cost at least $15,000. Last week, Liam had told Eleanor they couldn't afford to fix the heating in the guest bedroom. "And for you, Mother," Liam said, handing Beatrice a heavy box. It was a rare first edition of a classic novel Beatrice pretended to like. She beamed. Then the room went quiet. There was one box left under the tree, a small, haphazardly wrapped package. "For Elena," Beatrice said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Go on, dear. Open it." Liam and I picked it out together. Liam looked away, studying the pattern on the rug. He knew what was in the box. Elena stood up and took the package. It felt light. She tore the paper. Inside was a box for a slim-fast 30-day weight loss kit and a gift certificate for a local employment agency. The silence in the room was deafening. Sarah covered her mouth to hide a giggle. Beatrice watched Eleanor with the intensity of a hawk, waiting for the tears, waiting for the humiliation. "We thought it would help you get back on your feet," Beatrice said innocently. "You know, since you'll need to find a more suitable career soon, and perhaps look a bit sharper for interviews." Eleanor looked at the diet pills. She looked at the job agency voucher. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of cleaning their house, cooking their meals, nursing Beatrice when she had the flu, supporting Liam when his first firm went bankrupt. And this was her severance package. Elena didn't cry. She didn't scream. She smiled. It was a cold, terrifying smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you, Beatrice," Elena said softly. "This is very enlightening. It's exactly what I needed to make my decision." "Decision?" Liam asked, looking up nervously. "What decision?" "You'll find out at dinner," Elena said. "I have a gift for you too, Liam. But it's not under the tree. It's being delivered." "Delivered?" Beatrice scoffed. "With what money? Did you pawn the silverware?" "No," Elena said, turning to walk away. "I just dipped into my savings. Don't worry, it didn't cost much. Freedom is surprisingly cheap." She walked out of the room, leaving a confused silence in her wake. Back in her room, Elena locked the door. She checked her phone. Message from Arthur Vance. "ETA 1800 hours. The legal team is in the 2nd helicopter. The Securities Commission is in the 3rd. We are bringing the storm, Elle. Be ready." Elena typed back, "I'm ready. Let it rain." She spent the rest of the day as a ghost in the house. She heard the preparations downstairs. The catering staff arrived. Beatrice had hired a Michelin-star team for the night because Sarah's parents, the Dyroms, were coming. Mr. Dyrom was a wealthy real estate developer, a man Liam desperately needed to impress to save his failing architecture firm. Around 4 p.m., Elena began her transformation. She showered, scrubbing off the scent of polish and cleaning fluid. She sat at her vanity and opened a makeup case she hadn't touched in years. She applied a bold, winged eyeliner and a lipstick in a shade called Vengeance Red. She swept her hair up into an intricate regal chignon, exposing the long, elegant line of her neck. Then, the dress. She stepped into the Givenchy gown. It was a masterpiece of blood-red silk that hugged every curve, with a slit up the leg and a plunged back. It was a dress meant for galas, for red carpets, for war. She put on the diamond earrings her father had given her for her 21st birthday, stones so large and clear they would pay off the sterling mortgage twice over. She had hidden them in the hollow leg of her nightstand. She looked in the mirror. The teacher was gone. The billionaire heiress had returned. At 5:55 p.m., she heard the doorbell ring. The Dyroms had arrived. She heard the polite chatter, the clinking of glasses. Elena picked up the manila envelope containing the divorce papers she had stolen from Liam's briefcase the night before. She grabbed a fountain pen. She opened her bedroom door and walked toward the stairs. The sound of her heels clicking on the hardwood floor was like the ticking of a bomb. The dining room was a spectacle of opulence. A 12-foot table was set with gold-rimmed china, crystal goblets, and elaborate floral centerpieces. At the head of the table sat Beatrice, looking like a queen in her element. To her right, Mr. and Mrs. Dyrom. Next to them, Sarah, clutching Liam's hand. Liam looked nervous. He was mid-pitch, trying to sell Mr. Dyrom on his vision for the Aspen Lodge. "The structural integrity is key," Liam was saying, sweating slightly. "And with your investment, sir, sterling architecture can finally—" He stopped. Everyone stopped. The double doors to the dining room swung open. Elena stood there. For a solid 10 seconds, nobody breathed. The woman in the doorway was unrecognizable. The red dress flowed around her like liquid fire. The diamonds in her ears caught the chandelier light, sending prisms dancing across the room. She radiated a power that made Beatrice's emeralds look like costume jewelry. "Sorry I'm late," Elena said, her voice smooth and commanding. She walked into the room, not with the shuffle of a servant, but with the stride of a runway model. "Elena," Liam choked out, standing up halfway. "What? Where did you get that dress?" "Does it matter?" Elena asked, pulling out the chair at the head of the table, directly opposite Beatrice. It was a power move. That seat was reserved for the man of the house, a seat Liam usually avoided. Beatrice's jaw tightened. "You're making a scene, Elena. Sit at your usual spot." "No," Elena said, sitting down gracefully. "I think I like the view from here better." Mr. Dyram, a portly man with a red face, squinted at Elena. He looked confused. "Liam, I thought you said your wife was simple." "She is," Sarah interjected quickly, sensing the shift in power. "She's just playing dress-up. Probably rented it." Elena ignored Sarah entirely. She looked at Mr. Dyram. "Mr. Dyram, I've heard so much about your real estate ventures. Though I must say, your leverage ratio on the Midtown project is a bit risky, isn't it? 80% debt. The banks must be nervous." Mr. Dyram choked on his wine. How do you know about the Midtown financials? That's private." "Information travels," Elena said, with a cryptic smile. Beatrice slammed her hand on the table. "Enough! Elena, you will not insult our guests. Liam, get her out of here." Liam stood up, his face red. "Elena, let's go. Upstairs. Now." "Sit down, Liam," Elena said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it had the crack of a whip. Liam froze. "I said I had a gift for you," Elena continued. She reached for the manila envelope she had placed on her lap. She tossed it onto the center of the table. It slid across the polished wood, knocking over a crystal salt shaker, and stopped right in front of Liam's plate. "What is this?" Liam whispered. "Open it." Liam opened the envelope. He pulled out the documents. He recognized them immediately. "You found them," he breathed. "I did," Elena said. "You wanted a divorce, Liam? You wanted to trade me in for a newer model with a bigger bank account. You wanted to give me $5,000 and a Honda Civic." The room went silent. Mr. Dyram looked at Liam with distaste. "You offered your wife $5,000. That's ungentlemanly, Sterling." "She has nothing," Beatrice hissed, defending her son. "She came to us with nothing. She leaves with nothing. Sign the papers, Elena, and leave." "Oh, I'll sign them," Elena said. She pulled the fountain pen from her purse. It was a Mont Blanc, engraved with gold. She uncapped the pen. "But I'm not signing them because I'm defeated. I'm signing them because you people aren't worth the air I breathe." She signed her name with a flourish. Elena Vance, not Elena Sterling. "There," she said, sliding the papers back. "I'm free, and just in time." "In time for what?" Sarah asked, sneering. "The bus?" Suddenly, a low rumble began to vibrate the room. It started soft, shaking the water in the glasses, then grew louder. A rhythmic thump, thump, thump that was unmistakable. "Is that thunder?" Mrs. Dyram asked, looking at the window. "No," Mr. Dyram said, standing up and moving to the window. "That's a helicopter." "A helicopter?" Beatrice frowned. "Who would be landing a helicopter here? It's Christmas." The noise became deafening. Outside, the front lawn was bathed in blinding spotlights. The wind from the rotors whipped the snow into a blizzard against the glass. Then a second rumble, a second helicopter, then a third. "What is going on?" Liam yelled over the noise. The front doors of the house were not just opened, they were thrown wide. The heavy oak slammed against the walls, a team of 6 men in black tactical suits and earpieces marched into the dining room. They fanned out, securing the perimeter of the room. They weren't police. They were private military contractors. "Who are you? Get out of my house!" Beatrice shrieked, standing up. One of the guards stepped forward. "Secure the room. The principal is entering." A figure walked through the door. He was a tall man in his 60s, wearing a bespoke cashmere overcoat and a scarf that cost more than the Sterling estate. He had silver hair and eyes that looked like they could cut glass, eyes that were identical to Elena's. It was Arthur Vance, the Wolf of Wall Street, the man who ate companies for breakfast. The room went dead silent. Mr. Dyram turned pale. He recognized him instantly. In the business world, Arthur Vance was a god, a vengeful, terrifying god. "Arthur." "Vance," Mr. Dyram whispered, his voice trembling. Arthur ignored him. He ignored Beatrice. He ignored Liam. He walked straight to Elena, who was still sitting at the head of the table. He reached out a hand. "Hello, Daddy," Elena said, taking his hand and standing up. "Hello, Elle," Arthur said, his voice surprisingly gentle. He kissed her on the forehead. Then he turned to face the room. His expression shifted from fatherly warmth to glacial coldness. "So," Arthur said, looking at Liam, who was shaking in his shoes. "You're the little boy who thought my daughter was worth 5,000. Liam's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Your daughter? You didn't know?" Arthur laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You spent 3 years with the sole heiress of the Vance global empire, and you treated her like a maid." Beatrice collapsed into her chair. "Vance? As in, Vance Private Equity." "The same," Arthur said. He snapped his fingers. Another man entered, a lawyer in a shark-skinned suit. He placed a stack of documents on the table, right on top of the Christmas turkey. "What is this?" Beatrice whispered. "This," Arthur said, unbuttoning his coat, "is a foreclosure notice. You see, Beatrice, I've been busy this morning. While you were opening presents, my team was buying your debt. The mortgage on this house? I own it. The loans for Liam's failing architecture firm? I own them. Mr. Dyram's investment?" Arthur looked at Mr. Dyram. "You're pulling out, aren't you, Bob?" Mr. Dyram nodded vigorously, terrified. "Absolutely, Mr. Vance. I had no idea. No idea she was your daughter. I'm out. Liam, the deal is off." Arthur turned back to Liam. "You have no investors. You have no house. You have no wife." Arthur picked up the divorce papers Elena had signed. He looked at the $5,000 settlement figure and chuckled. "You wanted a financial split?" Arthur asked. "We accept. Elena takes what is hers. And since I now own your debts, and you have defaulted as of 5 minutes ago, I believe we will be taking everything else." Elena stepped forward, standing next to her father. She looked at Liam, whose life had just disintegrated in the span of 3 minutes. "Merry Christmas, Liam," Elena said. "I hope you enjoy the snow. You'll be sleeping in it tonight." The silence in the dining room was shattered by the sound of cutlery hitting the floor. Mrs. Dyram had dropped her fork. "You can't do this," Beatrice stammered, her face losing all its color, the heavy makeup suddenly looking like cracks in a porcelain mask. "This is my home. My husband built this house. And you mortgaged it 3 times to fund a lifestyle you couldn't afford," Arthur Vance said calmly, checking his watch. "The bank was going to foreclose on January 15th. I simply expedited the process. I bought the note at 4:30 p.m. today. As the new owner, I am exercising my right to immediate possession." Arthur turned to the lead security officer. "Jones, please escort the trespassers off the property. They have 10 minutes to collect essential items. No valuables, no jewelry, only clothes. 10 minutes? Liam shouted, finding his voice. This is insane. It's Christmas night. It's 10 degrees below zero out there. Elena took a sip of the red wine that had been poured for her, a vintage bottle Beatrice had been saving for years. It was cold in the guest room too, Liam. Remember when I asked for a space heater and you told me to put on another sweater? I suggest you start layering up. Elena, please, Liam begged, his arrogance dissolving into pathetic desperation. He moved toward her, hands outstretched. We can talk about this. I didn't know. If I had known who you were— That's exactly the problem, Liam, Elena said, her eyes flashing with cold fire. You needed to know my bank balance to treat me like a human being. That's why we're here. Sarah, who had been watching the scene unfold with horror, suddenly grabbed her purse. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. Well, Sarah said, her voice high and tight. This seems like a family matter. Liam, call me when this is sorted. She turned to leave, but Liam grabbed her arm. Sarah, where are you going? You're supposed to stay with me. We're partners. Sarah ripped her arm away, looking at him with pure disgust. Partners? Liam, you're destitute. My father isn't going to invest in a bankrupt architect living on the street. It's over. She looked at Mr. Darum. Daddy, let's go. Sit down, Arthur Vance commanded. Sarah and Mr. Darum froze. Nobody leaves until my team clears you, Arthur said. Jones, check their bags. I want to make sure no sterling assets are walking out the door. The humiliation was absolute. The security team dumped Sarah's Louis Vuitton bag onto the table. Lipsticks, phone, and a small silver snuff box belonging to the Sterling estate rolled out. Thief! Beatrice gasped. I was just borrowing it, Sarah shrieked. Get them out, Elena said, waving her hand wearily. I'm tired of looking at them. The next 10 minutes were a blur of chaotic misery. The security team marched Beatrice, Liam, and the guests into the foyer. Beatrice tried to run upstairs to her jewelry safe, but a guard blocked her path. Essentials only, ma'am, the guard said. He handed her a heavy wool coat from the closet. Put this on. My diamonds, Beatrice wailed. My mother's pearls. Belong to the estate, Arthur called out from the dining room, where he was calmly slicing a piece of turkey. Which belongs to me. Which, by extension, belongs to Elena. Liam stood by the door, holding a pair of boots. He looked back at Elena, who had followed them into the hallway. She stood on the grand staircase, looking down at them, a reversal of the position she had occupied for 3 years. Elena, Liam whispered, where are we supposed to go? Elena reached into her pocket. She pulled out the gift certificate Beatrice had given her that morning, the one for the employment agency. She fluttered it down the stairs. It landed at Liam's feet. There, Elena said. That should help you get back on your feet. I hear they have openings for construction labor. It's good, honest work, Liam. Beatrice let out a sob of rage. You witch! You planned this! You entrapped us! I just signed the papers you gave me, Elena said. Goodbye, Beatrice. Or should I say, Mrs. Sterling. The heavy oak doors were opened. The wind howled into the warm foyer, bringing a swirl of snow. The security guards gently but firmly pushed them out. Beatrice stumbled in her heels. Liam tried to steady her. Sarah and her parents ran for their car, the engine roaring as they peeled out of the driveway, leaving the Sterlings behind. Liam and Beatrice stood on the driveway of the mansion they used to own. The snow was already soaking through their thin indoor shoes. The massive doors slammed shut. The lock clicked. Inside, Elena walked to the window and watched them. She saw Liam banging on the door for a moment, then giving up. She saw them walking down the long, frozen driveway toward the main road, two dark figures disappearing into the white void. "Are you okay?" Arthur asked, coming up behind her and placing a hand on her shoulder. Elena touched the glass. "I thought I would feel guilty," she whispered. "I thought I would feel sad." "And?" "I feel," she took a deep breath, "lighter than I have in my entire life." Arthur smiled. "Good. Because the real work starts tomorrow. They won't take this lying down. People like Beatrice never do. They're like cornered rats. They'll bite." "Let them bite," Elena said, turning away from the window. "I have teeth now, too." 3 weeks later. The Golden Glades Motel was anything but golden. It was a roadside establishment on the outskirts of New Jersey, the kind of place where the neon sign buzzed incessantly and the sheets smelled of stale cigarette smoke. Room 104 was cramped. Clothes were piled on the cheap laminate chairs. Take-out containers littered the small table. Beatrice Sterling sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the TV. A local news station was playing. And in business news, Vance Global has announced the acquisition of Sterling Architecture, aiming to repurpose the failing firm's assets into affordable housing projects. The initiative is being led by Arthur Vance's daughter, the newly revealed Elena Vance, who has taken the city by storm. On the screen, Elena looked radiant. She was wearing a white power suit, cutting a ribbon at a construction site. She looked powerful, beautiful, rich. Beatrice threw the remote control at the TV. It cracked the screen, but didn't stop the image of Eleanor smiling. "She's mocking us," Beatrice hissed. "She's turning our legacy into poor houses." Liam came out of the bathroom. He looked terrible. He hadn't shaved in days, and he had lost weight. "Mother, stop it. We have bigger problems. The credit cards are all declined. The manager says if we don't pay by tomorrow, we're out." "We are not paying," Beatrice snapped. "We are going to take back what is ours." "How?" Liam slumped onto the other bed. "She has billions, Mother. We have $12 and a bus pass." There was a knock at the door. Beatrice smoothed her hair. "Get that. It's the lawyer." "We can't afford a lawyer," Liam groaned. "This one is working on contingency," Beatrice said with a dark smile. Liam opened the door. A short, sweating man in an ill-fitting brown suit walked in. He carried a briefcase that looked like it had been chewed by a dog. This was Marcus Thorne, a man known in the legal underground as the Hyena. He specialized in cases legitimate firms wouldn't touch. "Mrs. Sterling," Thorne said, wiping his forehead with a handkerchief. "Mr. Sterling, I've reviewed the case." "And?" Beatrice asked eagerly. "It's tricky," Thorne admitted, sitting on the pile of clothes. "She signed the divorce papers. The foreclosure was legal. Arthur Vance's team is watertight." Beatrice's face fell. "So you're useless." "However," Thorne raised a finger, "there is the court of public opinion, and there is the concept of marital fraud and emotional distress. You see, if we can prove that Elena Vance hid her identity maliciously to cause you financial harm, entrapping you into debt while she sat on a fortune, we can sue for damages. Massive damages." "She did," Liam said. "She watched us struggle for 3 years. She could have written a check and saved the firm." "Exactly," Thorne smiled, revealing yellow teeth. "We paint her as a sociopath, the billionaire who played poor to torture her husband. We go to the press. We file a lawsuit for $50 million in alimony and emotional damages. Vance Global hates bad PR. They'll settle just to shut us up." Beatrice's eyes lit up. "I want her destroyed. I want her name dragged through the mud." "We launch tomorrow," Thorne said. "I've set up a press conference on the steps of the courthouse. We'll play the victims. The poor, displaced family kicked out into the snow on Christmas by the heartless heiress. The next morning, the media circus began. Elena was in her father's office in Manhattan, a glass tower overlooking the city. She was reviewing blueprints for the new housing initiative when her assistant rushed in, looking pale. "Miss Vance, you need to see this." She turned on the wall monitor. There was Beatrice, standing in front of a swarm of microphones, wearing her old, ragged coat. A calculated costume choice. Liam stood next to her, looking downcast. "She lied to us," Beatrice sobbed into the cameras, squeezing out fake tears. "We took her in when she was a nobody. We fed her, we clothed her, and all along she was laughing at us. She watched my son work himself to the bone, knowing she could help, but she chose not to. She is a monster who stole our home on Christmas night." The headline on the news ticker read, "Heiress Horror. Did Elena Vance torture? Husband for sport." Arthur Vance walked into the room. He looked furious. "I'll have their lawyer disbarred by noon. I'll sue them for defamation." "No," Elena said, staring at the screen. She watched Liam nodding along to his mother's lies, the man she had once loved, the man she had protected. "No lawsuits, Dad," Elena said calmly. "They want a settlement. They want us to pay them to go away. So what do we do?" Elena stood up. She walked to the safe in the corner of the office. She spun the dial and opened it. Inside was the hard drive she had copied from Liam's computer the night she left. But there was something else, too. A folder she had received from a private investigator months ago. Something she had been too afraid to use, because she still had hope for her marriage. She pulled out the folder. "They want to talk about fraud," Elena said, tossing the folder onto the desk. "Let's talk about fraud." "What is this?" Arthur asked. "Proof," Elena said. "Proof that the Kensington project wasn't just failing. It was a Ponzi scheme. Liam and Beatrice weren't just bad with money, Dad. They were embezzling from their clients to pay for their lifestyle. They were laundering money." Arthur's eyebrows shot up. "This is a federal crime. This is prison time." "Exactly," Elena said. "They want a court battle? I'll give them one. But it won't be civil court." She picked up the phone. "Get the car ready, and call the district attorney. Tell him I have a present for him." "Where are you going?" Arthur asked. "They're holding a press conference," Elena said, buttoning her blazer. "I think it's time for a Q&A session." An hour later, the courthouse steps were packed. Beatrice was in the middle of a dramatic monologue about how Eleanor had starved them emotionally. "We only want justice," Beatrice cried. "We want what is fair." Suddenly, a murmur went through the crowd. Heads turned, cameras pivoted. A black limousine pulled up to the curb. Elena stepped out. She wasn't hiding. She walked straight toward the microphones, flanked not by security, but by the district attorney and 2 FBI agents. Beatrice's speech died in her throat. Liam looked like he was about to vomit. Marcus Thorne, the sleazy lawyer, tried to slip away into the crowd, but a police officer blocked his path. "Elena," a reporter shouted, "do you have a comment on your husband's accusations?" Elena stepped up to the podium. She didn't shove Beatrice aside. Beatrice stepped back instinctively, terrified by the aura of authority Elena radiated. "I do have a comment," Elena said into the cluster of microphones. Her voice was clear, ringing out over the plaza. "My ex-husband and his mother claim I deceived them. They claim financial ruin. But the truth is, the sterling fortune didn't disappear because of bad luck. It disappeared because they stole it." The crowd gasped. Beatrice, who screamed, "Liar!" Elena held up the documents. "These are bank records showing transfers from the Sterling Architecture client accounts directly into Beatrice Sterling's offshore shell companies. This is evidence of wire fraud, embezzlement, and grand larceny totaling $4 million. She turned to the FBI agents. Officers, I believe these are the people you're looking for. The flashbulbs erupted like a thunderstorm. The agents moved in. Liam Sterling, Beatrice Sterling, the lead agent announced, pulling out handcuffs. You are under arrest. The trial of the century did not last long. With the evidence Elena had provided, stacks of falsified invoices, offshore account records, and witness testimony from former employees the Sterlings had fired, the defense crumbled. 6 months after that fateful Christmas eviction, Elena sat in the front row of the Federal District Court. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair loose. She didn't need the red dress or the diamonds today. Today, she just needed the truth. On the defense bench, Beatrice Sterling looked like a ghost. Her hair was grey and unkempt, the dye having grown out months ago. She wore an orange jumpsuit that clashed horribly with her pale, trembling skin. Liam sat next to her, head in his hands, unable to even look at the judge. Beatrice Sterling, Judge Reynolds boomed, his voice echoing in the silent courtroom. For the crimes of wire fraud, grand larceny, and conspiracy to commit money laundering, this court finds you guilty. Beatrice let out a low moan, clutching Liam's arm. And you, Liam Sterling, the judge continued, for your complicity and active participation in these schemes to defraud your investors, you are also found guilty. The gavel came down with a sound like a gunshot. Beatrice Sterling is sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Liam Sterling is sentenced to 8 years. You will be remanded into custody immediately. Beatrice screamed. It was a raw, primal sound of a woman who realized her life was over. No, you can't. I'm a Sterling. I have standing. You are a felon, Ms. Sterling, the bailiff said, pulling her hands behind her back to cuff her. As they were dragged toward the side door, leading to the holding cells, Liam stopped. He locked eyes with Eleanor. There was no arrogance left, no sneer, just a terrified boy who had let his mother destroy him. Eleanor, he choked out. I'm sorry. Eleanor looked at him. She searched her heart for anger, for hate, for satisfaction, but she found none of it. She just felt a profound, quiet relief. Goodbye, Liam, she whispered. She didn't watch them leave. She stood up, picked up her purse, and walked out of the courtroom. Outside, the sun was shining. The press was there, but Arthur had arranged for a private exit. As she climbed into the back of the car, her father was waiting. It's done? Arthur asked. It's done, Elena nodded. She leaned her head on his shoulder. They're gone. And the house? Arthur asked. Elena smiled. I have a plan for that. Snow was falling again in Greenwich, Connecticut, but this time the atmosphere at the former Sterling estate was very different. The iron gates were open. The nameplate that once read Sterling Manor had been removed. In its place was a warm wooden sign, the Vance Sanctuary for Women. Eleanor stood in the foyer, the same foyer where she had been humiliated, where she had been treated like a servant. The cold, imposing statues were gone. The walls were painted a warm cream color. The house was filled with the sound of laughter, of children playing, of life. Elena had transformed the estate into a transitional home for women escaping abusive marriages and financial ruin. She used the Sterling fortune, or what was recovered of it, to fund legal aid, job training, and housing for women who had nothing. Elena? She turned to see Henry, the old butler. He hadn't been fired. Elena had hired him back as the estate manager, with a salary triple what Beatrice had paid him. The guests are seated for dinner, Miss Vance, Henry smiled, and the turkey is cooked to perfection, no polishing required. Elena laughed. Thank you, Henry. She walked into the dining room. The long table where she had once sat alone at the children's seat was packed. Women of all ages sat there, sharing stories, passing food, safe and warm. At the head of the table sat Arthur Vance, wearing a Santa hat and looking ridiculous but happy. He was carving the turkey. "There she is," Arthur boomed. "The boss!" Eleanor took her seat, not at the head, but right in the middle, surrounded by her new family. She looked around the room. She thought about the girl she used to be, the timid teacher who polished silver to earn a scrap of affection. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who had walked through the fire and built a lighthouse in the ashes. Her phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Update: Sarah Dyram files for bankruptcy after father's real estate empire collapses due to investigation linked to Sterling scandal. Elena swiped the notification away without reading the rest. She didn't care. That was a different life. She raised her glass. "To Christmas," Elena said, her voice strong and clear. "And to knowing your worth." "To Christmas," the room cheered. Outside, the snow covered the tracks of the past, leaving everything clean, white, and ready for a brand new story. And that is how Elena Vance turned her darkest Christmas into her brightest victory. She taught the Sterlings a lesson they will never forget. You never know who you are talking to, and kindness is a currency more valuable than any diamond. The Sterlings thought power came from humiliating others, but Elena proved that true power comes from standing up for yourself. What about you? If you were Eleanor, would you have forgiven Liam, or did he get exactly what he deserved? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of justice and revenge, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We have a shocking new drama coming next week about a runaway bride and a secret lottery ticket that you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and remember, the best revenge is living well. See you next time.
Thanks for watching.